Discipline is not something you do once and expect everything to change. It doesn't come from waking up one morning full of excitement or from an emotional high. Discipline is a nature, a choice. It's something you silently build day by day, even when no one sees it, no one cheers for it, no one acknowledges it. And precisely because no one witnesses it, only you truly know who you're becoming. I'm telling you this not to inspire you, but to remind you of a profound truth that most people deliberately forget. Discipline is a way of living, not a short-term strategy. It's a silent declaration you repeat every morning when you open your eyes. It's a continuous refusal of comfort in order to choose what's right. It's acting not because you feel ready, but because you've chosen to be the kind of person who acts regardless of emotion. People often say, I'll start when I have time. I'll focus when I feel inspired again. I'll try harder when things get easier. But I'm telling you this, if you're still waiting for the right feeling to begin, you're surrendering your power to your circumstances. You're letting your mood dictate your future. And by doing so, you're living as a temporary version of yourself, never truly stepping into the process of inner growth. Discipline is an unconditional commitment to the person you've chosen to become. It does not depend on the weather, your mood, or external recognition. It doesn't come from motivation, it comes from vision. Because there comes a moment when you must look into the mirror and ask yourself, what kind of life do I truly want to live? And right after that, you must be willing to pay the price to live in alignment with that answer. I've seen intelligent, talented, and deeply ambitious people, yet they always fail because of one missing piece: consistency. They start many things but never finish. They set goals but fail to build systems. They seek change but won't sacrifice short-term comfort. And then they conclude they lack ability, when in truth the issue is this: they haven't dared to choose a disciplined identity. You don't need to do everything, you just need to do one right thing consistently. And to do that, you have to decide, who am I? If you still see yourself as someone who needs motivation to begin, you'll always be in search mode. But if you start acting as if you're already someone with discipline, you are reprogramming your entire identity. Every time you act despite lacking motivation, you're forging a deeper self-respect. There is a clear difference between someone who lives with discipline and someone who lives by emotion. The first chooses what is right, the second chooses what is easy. The first lives with intention, the second waits to be led by life's current. And eventually, you'll realize, living without discipline doesn't make you feel free. It exhausts you with the silent burden of self-betrayal. Take a look at a typical day in your life. What are you doing in the morning? Do you start with clarity or by rushing into messages and social media? Do you set priorities or let tasks come at you on their own? It's these small behaviors, repeated day after day, that truly define who you are. Not what you say, not what you dream of, but what you actually do in silence. Discipline doesn't need a declaration. It doesn't need to be shared on social media. It doesn't need a hashtag or applause. It only needs one person, committed enough to enter each day as if every action matters. And the truth is, they do. Every time you choose what is right over what is easy, you take one step closer to the person you wish to become. Don't judge your day by your emotions. Judge it by what you've completed, even the smallest task, because success isn't built on fleeting feelings, but on the ability to override those feelings and keep moving forward. Today you're tired, still write. Today you're confused, still study. Today you don't feel like it, still keep your promise. That's identity. And when it becomes habit, you no longer need to force yourself. You simply live that way. You don't need to wait until you feel confident to act. It's action that creates confidence. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment. It's the inconvenient, imperfect moments when you still choose to act that become the turning points of your life. Successful people are not the ones who are always ready. They're the ones who understand this. Waiting only feeds procrastination. If today you still feel like you lack discipline, don't blame yourself, but be honest. Ask yourself, am I acting like the person I want to become? If the answer is no, there's no need to retreat. Just begin to change. You don't have to overhaul your entire life. Just start with one clear decision, repeated every day. I choose a disciplined identity. I live in alignment with that choice, regardless of how I feel. Because discipline is not an action, it's a silent declaration you repeat daily until it stops being an effort and becomes a part of you. And once you become a disciplined person, you no longer need to chase results. The results are drawn to you because you've become someone capable of holding them. And that's the difference between those who wait and those who choose, between those who hope and those who act, between those who wish to change and those who live as if they already have. I believe you know exactly who you want to become. The only remaining question is, are you ready to live as that person? Starting today. If you want to build a strong house, you must first clear the land. If you want to rise with strength, you cannot drag along burdens that no longer hold value. The issue isn't that you lack motivation, time, or ability. The issue is that you're carrying too many things that no longer serve you. And it's those excess elements, whether habits, relationships, thoughts, or behaviors, that silently slow you down day after day. I'm telling you this not to urge you to hastily erase everything, but to help you understand. Cutting away is not a loss. It is the first act of reclaiming control. Because discipline isn't about forcing yourself to do more. It's about having the clarity to know what to keep and what to let go of. You can't create space for what matters if you continue to hold on to what merely fills instead of deepens. Take a look at a normal day in your life. How many actions do you perform simply out of habit, not purpose? How many conversations do you engage in that don't move you forward but only drain your energy? How many pieces of content do you silently scroll through that leave behind a quiet storm in your mind? The more you pay attention, the more you realize life doesn't lack time. It lacks decluttering. There's one truth I want you to remember. It's not the amount of work that exhausts you. It's the lack of focus. That sense of chaos, loss of control, breathlessness. It often doesn't come from true overload, but from doing too many unnecessary things. And worse, you're allowing yourself to become familiar with a feeling of being busy but not progressing. That habit kills clarity and gradually erodes your self-confidence. Cutting away is not running away. On the contrary, it's an act of high courage. You must be honest enough with yourself to look directly at your life and ask, does this truly help me get closer to the person I want to become? And if the answer is no, then don't hesitate. Whether it's a relationship, a mindset, or a repeated behavior, you must be ready to say no, because every time you hold on to something that no longer fits, you delay your true growth. I've seen many people speak of discipline as a process of pushing harder, trying more, doing more. But in truth, the first and most vital stage of discipline is refinement. You don't need another goal-setting journal, another time management app, or another motivational video. You need less. You need to delete 5 apps that constantly distract you. You need to stop replying to messages that pull you into pointless conversations. You need to step out of meetings that please others but drain your energy. Discipline doesn't begin with adding, it begins with cutting. Try to recall the last time you felt truly clear, light, and powerful. It wasn't when you were juggling everything. It was when you focused on one thing and gave it your full presence. That's the state you need to recreate by simplifying everything. Strangely enough, strength doesn't come from complexity. It comes from clarity. When you remove the excess, you see clearly. When you see clearly, you act correctly. And when you act correctly, you begin to trust yourself again. I want you to picture this. Each day you wake up with a limited bag of energy. If you spend most of it on indecision, procrastination, or distractions that don't matter, then by the time you need to act decisively, you're already drained. It's not that you're weak. You've just been depleted by distractions. And the dangerous part is that when this happens daily, you stop noticing it. It becomes your new normal. But I'm here to remind you, that version of normal is silently eroding your ability to live with awareness and purpose. Cutting away doesn't make you cold. It makes you intentional. Not everyone deserves your time and attention. Not everything deserves a slice of your precious daily energy. The more alert you are, the more you'll know what is noise and what is focus. And once you know what matters, your actions stop scattering. I'm going to pause and write down, right now, 5 things you know you should stop. 5 things that are taking up your time, energy, or mental space without giving back anything meaningful. Write them down. Face them. Cut them. You don't need a grand announcement. You only need one small decision, repeated daily. I no longer invest my life in things that don't move me forward. You already know what you're carrying that's unnecessary. You know it better than anyone. And the truth is, no one else can do this for you. No one else can declutter your life. No one can live consciously on your behalf. You must be the one who acts. You must be the one who chooses. Because if you don't dare to cut, you can't reap. If you don't dare to let go of what no longer fits, you can't embrace what truly matters. Every single thing you release is a declaration of the person you're building, and no one can take that away from you. Success, clarity, and self-respect, they all begin here, from one act that seems simple, cutting what's unnecessary. And when you truly do it, you'll realize you didn't lose anything at all. You just started to get yourself back. There's a subtle trap that many people fall into over and over again without realizing it, waiting for the right feeling before they take action. They wait for motivation, for mental stability, for favorable conditions. But the truth is, if you live this way, you'll spend your whole life waiting. Waiting for an ideal mood, waiting for the perfect timing, waiting for all fears to disappear. And then one day you'll wake up and realize you're still in the same place, while your dreams have long drifted away. I'm telling you this because I've lived through it. I used to think that if I just waited until everything felt right, then I would act. But that right feeling never came. Emotions are fragile, unpredictable, and not something you should entrust your future to. You can't expect something as unstable as a mood to be the enduring engine of a purposeful life. What you need is not the right feeling. What you need is the right action, especially when the feeling is wrong, when you're tired but still complete the task, when you're anxious but still send the proposal, when you feel inadequate but still walk into that room. That's not just action, it's a declaration, a statement that says, I will not let my emotions define my limits. You don't need to feel confident to do something important. It's the doing that creates confidence. You don't need certainty to begin. It's the beginning that builds clarity. What you're afraid of are just projections in your head, not reality. And the only way to prove those projections wrong is to walk into reality through action. I know you've said it many times, I'm not ready. But be honest, what is ready? Is it when you feel no fear? When you know the outcome? When everyone supports you? No, because if you wait until fear disappears, you'll never start. If you wait until you're certain, you'll never learn. And if you only move when others cheer you on, you'll forever live in someone else's comfort zone, not your own. Readiness is not a feeling, it's a decision. And that decision can only be made by you. Every time you act in the midst of feeling unready, you're rewriting your identity. You're telling your mind, I am a doer, not a waiter. And when you repeat that behavior often enough, your mind stops resisting every time you begin. It will come to believe you are someone who doesn't delay. You are someone who can be trusted by yourself. I want you to look at the things you've been putting off. The workout you always planned to start on Monday, the important call you still haven't made, the plan you've opened dozens of times but haven't written a single line. You may have many reasons, but they all boil down to one. You're waiting for the right feeling, and that's the very reason you haven't progressed. Maturity begins when you stop living by emotion and start living by commitment. When you're truly committed to something, you no longer ask, do I feel like doing it? You ask, how will I do it? Successful people are not those who always feel positive. They are the ones who can act even in negative states, and that is a skill you can absolutely develop if you're honest enough and brave enough to face yourself. You don't need to feel energized to act, you just need to act, to reactivate your energy. Don't wait for motivation, generate it through movement. Action creates new emotion. Repeated commitment creates new confidence. And the more you act while feeling unready, the more you prove to your brain you are someone who can be trusted, even when things aren't perfect. I'm not saying you should push yourself to the point of burnout. I'm saying you need to learn how to make decisions that aren't ruled by fleeting emotions. You need to build an action system where feelings are not the driver, because if you only work when you're inspired, you'll never go far. But if you create a clear standard of action, you'll surpass even the most talented version of yourself that you imagined. Do you know what sets apart the winners from those who stay stuck? It's not talent. It's not luck. It's the ability to take action when no one's watching, when they're tired, bored, doubting themselves, and still they do it. And because of that, step by step, they bend destiny in their favor. They don't wait for the world to change. They change themselves to meet the world. I want you to remember this. Acting even when you're not ready is not just a tactic. It's a way of life, an identity, a form of highest self-respect. Because what you're telling yourself is this: I matter enough that I will no longer delay what I know I need to do. And when you live like that, day by day, through small actions, through quiet steps, you will witness yourself changing, not loudly, not needing anyone's validation, but deeply, sustainably. And then you no longer have to try to be strong. You already are, because you no longer need emotions to lead you. You have goals, you have standards, and you have a commitment strong enough to move you forward, even when it rains. How many times have you stood in front of something important and whispered to yourself, I'll do it, when I'm no longer afraid? And then time passed, yet you remained in the same place. What you want is still sitting on the other side of an unnamed fear. We often believe that if we just wait a little longer, wait a few more days, wait for some clearer sign, then fear will retreat. But that's an illusion. Fear doesn't quietly disappear just because you sit still and hope it fades. On the contrary, it grows. The more you wait, the deeper it roots itself in your mind. The more you delay, the more it claims permanent residence in every decision you make. And the tragic part is, you think you're avoiding risk, when in truth, you're missing your life. Courage doesn't come after fear. It only shows up when you act in the midst of fear, when your heart is still racing, your hands still trembling, your gut still hesitant, but you move forward anyway. Courage is not the absence of trembling. It's the willingness to move through it. And that's why only action can make you stronger, not time. Time only gives you more reasons to avoid. It's action that changes how you see yourself. I know you're afraid of failing, afraid of judgment, afraid of being laughed at, afraid of not doing it well enough, but have you ever stopped to ask, what am I protecting? Are you holding on to old safety, or trying to preserve a version of yourself that no longer fits? Fear has a purpose. It warns you of danger. But the real question is, are you letting it drive, or is it just a passenger? If you let fear take the wheel, it'll drive you in loops, into safety, avoidance, and ultimately back to where you started. But if reason is in control, fear becomes just a signal, not a command. You don't need to become someone who feels no fear. You just need to be someone who recognizes the fear and chooses action anyway. Because every time you do something while afraid, you expand your limits. You send a deep message to your mind. I am no longer ruled by feeling. And when you repeat that enough, fear might still visit, but it will no longer make you retreat. I've seen people avoid important conversations for months simply because they feared tension. They delayed starting projects because they feared not being good enough. They stayed silent when they should have spoken because they feared not being heard. But it was that very avoidance that made their fears come true. Because they didn't start, they never improved. Because they didn't speak, they weren't understood. Because they didn't act, they remained in self-doubt. That here's something I want you to remember. Behind fear often lies what matters most. What you fear is likely what you need to face, because if it didn't matter, it wouldn't shake you. The feeling of fear is proof that you're brushing up against something meaningful. What you need to do is not step back, but step forward, even if just one small step. I'm not telling you to be reckless. I'm telling you to be honest. Honest that you're afraid, but you no longer allow fear to dominate you. Honest that you don't know the outcome, but you know exactly why you must act. Honest that you're shaking, but you refuse to live another day in delay. You don't need to act perfectly. You just need to act truthfully. Do the smallest thing, but do it sincerely. Schedule the meeting. Send the message. Write the first line. Submit the rough draft. You don't need to appear strong. You just need to be real and willing to step into that truth. Each time you act in fear, you're not just doing a task. You're rewriting your identity. You are no longer someone who acts once the fear is gone, but someone who acts while afraid. And that's the shift that takes you from stagnation to transformation. No one grows by staying still. We grow when we step through the very feeling that makes us want to run. And you'll realize something powerful. After action, fear doesn't disappear. It transforms into strength because you survived it. You faced it. You proved that you are strong enough to live the life you choose, not the life fear allows. If today you still feel fear, that doesn't mean you're weak. It simply means you have another opportunity to become stronger. And that strength will not come from waiting. It comes from acting. When you're not ready, when your heart is trembling, when your mind is filled with doubt, that moment, not any other, is the place where destiny begins to be rewritten. You don't need to feel confident to start. You need to start in order to become confident. You don't need to eliminate fear before moving forward. You need to move forward so that fear no longer controls you. You don't need anyone to encourage you to live a meaningful life. You need to be the one who looks in the mirror and says, I'm afraid, but I will not step back. And when you do that, even once, you've proven that you no longer live under fear's command. You've reclaimed the driver's seat. And from that moment forward, every step gets lighter, not because the world has changed, but because you've changed your position in the world. No longer beneath fear's shadow, but eye to eye and moving forward. There will be days when you give your best, but no one notices. No one asks. No one acknowledges. No one pats your back and tells you you're doing well. There will be days when you get up through exhaustion, push past doubt, silence the voice of procrastination just to finish one small task. And no one will know how hard that was. But in those invisible moments, you're building the most important thing, your inner foundation. Not fame, not recognition, but a quiet identity, the one that helps you stay grounded in a world that constantly shifts. I'm telling you this because if you only do what's right when someone's watching, then you're living to please the crowd. If you only keep your promises when reminded, then your word doesn't truly belong to you. But if you can do the right thing, even when no one knows, no one praises you, no one records it, then you're living with deep honesty toward yourself. And that's worth more than any compliment. You don't have to shout that you're trying. Real effort is never loud. It lives in the way you start your day even after a restless night, in the way you read a few pages despite a restless mind, in the way you train, learn, adjust the smallest details, with no one forcing you, no one reminding you. You don't do it because others are watching. You do it because you know that if you don't, you'll lose your own self-respect. We live in an era where everything is instantly shared. Success is posted. Failure is filtered. Effort is displayed through pictures, videos, captions. But there is a kind of effort that never makes it to the screen. It's when you sit quietly to journal, just to stay grounded. It's when you pause your anger and choose silence over retaliation. It's when you leave a toxic space without any announcement. These silent acts don't come with pretty images, no applause. But they are the most sacred parts of you, the parts no one can ever take away. Because what happens when you do the right thing and no one sees it? You learn to stop living for approval. You learn to walk without needing cheerleaders. You stop assigning your worth to someone else's gaze. And when you do that, you begin to carry something rare. Steadiness, a kind of calm that rises from within, a quiet strength that doesn't need performance. I want you to know, no one can fully measure what you've had to overcome just to arrive at today. No one lives in your body, hears your internal conversations, or understands the fear, pressure, and doubts you face each day. So stop waiting for someone else to validate your journey. They don't know, but you do. And that's what matters. Keep your commitments, even when no one's checking. Hold your standards, even when no one's watching. Do what's right, even when wrong seems more common. That's how you forge character, not from grand gestures, but from silent choices. Every time you choose what's right over what's easy, you place another brick in the foundation of your identity. And when enough bricks are laid, you build someone you can be proud of without needing anyone else's confirmation. You can go far with loud effort, but you only go deep with quiet integrity. Because in the end, you won't remember the likes, the praise. You'll remember the mornings you didn't quit when no one knew you were struggling. The early hours you showed up despite wanting to hide. The late nights you pushed through to honor a promise you made to yourself. These unspoken memories are the mosaic of a resilient soul. You don't need to do everything perfectly, but do what's right, even when no one knows. Because no one can live your life for you. No one else bears the responsibility of your choices. And no one else truly understands the weight of your efforts behind each small act. But you do. And when you live as if it's just you and the truth, you'll no longer feel lost, because you're not living to be seen, you're living to be honest. Doing the right thing, even when no one knows, is a quiet affirmation. I don't need a stage to keep my promises to myself. You don't need anyone to prove your worth, because true worth lies in whether you live according to what you believe. And only you can answer that, not through someone else's praise, not through applause, but through the steady rhythm of small, accurate, self-respecting actions. If today you're making silent effort, I want you to know it's not meaningless. If you're persisting in a world that seems indifferent, I want you to understand that you're creating something very real within. Depth. And depth doesn't need admiration, it just needs to be lived. Keep going, even if no one sees. Because the only one who needs to see is you, and you've been there all along. Steady, quiet, but unshakable. True self-respect doesn't begin with how you treat others. It begins with how you treat yourself. Specifically, whether or not you keep your promises to yourself. Not the grand declarations, not the bold proclamations, but the quiet commitments you whisper to yourself every morning and every night. When no one is watching, no one is forcing, no one is reminding. Keeping your word to others builds external credibility. But keeping your word to yourself is what builds the core within, the core that stays with you, even when everything outside falls apart. You've told yourself before, I'll start waking up early tomorrow, I won't scroll past 10 p.m., I'll meet this deadline, I'll exercise every day, and then How many times have you let those promises slide? Maybe because you were tired, maybe because you forgot, maybe because you thought it's fine, just this once. But the danger doesn't lie in a single broken promise. It lies in what follows. You start losing trust in yourself. Every time you break your word to yourself, you leave a tiny scratch on your self-respect. At first, it bothers you. Then you rationalize it. Eventually, you get used to being someone who says but doesn't do. And one day, you look in the mirror and no longer believe in the person staring back. You stop believing you can change. You stop believing you're capable of starting and finishing anything. The greatest loss in personal growth isn't failure. It's when you lose faith in yourself. I'm telling you this not to make you feel guilty, but to help you reclaim the power you may have unintentionally abandoned. Because just as trust eroded through broken promises, it can be rebuilt through small promises, small actions, and quiet consistency, even if no one sees. You don't need to start with big declarations. Start with what you can actually keep. Start by waking up on time just once, a meal you planned and followed through, 1 hour of focused study you promised to do. Don't overreach. Just do enough to feel, I'm living as someone I can trust. Keeping your word to yourself isn't just a moral act. It's an identity-building act. The more you do it, the more you shape a new version of yourself, someone reliable, someone whose every small decision is backed by action. And from there, you stop needing motivation. You stop needing encouragement. You stop needing inspiration to do what you already committed to, because it's become part of who you are. This shift will start to feel natural. When you consistently keep promises to yourself, you stop doubting your plans. You no longer ask, can I really do this? Because you already have evidence that you're the kind of person who follows through. Every completed promise is a vote for your inner confidence. And when you cast enough votes, you don't need anyone to crown you disciplined. You already are. On the other hand, if you keep breaking promises, no matter how small, you're rewriting your identity in the opposite direction. You slowly become someone who always starts but never finishes. Someone who sets goals but quietly retreats. Someone who says they'll change but never actually does. And each time that happens, it gets harder to start again, because you no longer trust yourself. That's not laziness. That's eroded internal belief. So start again, not by doing more, but by holding firmer. Keep the things you say you'll do. No need for grand gestures. No need for flashy promises. Just say, I'll read 10 pages a day, and then read them. Say you'll stay hydrated and actually drink the water. Say you'll be in bed before 11 p.m. and be there. Because every one of those acts, no matter how small, is helping shape a new you, a version that is steady, self-respecting, and trustworthy. Keeping your word to yourself is a form of commitment that doesn't need a signature, but it carries the weight of a vow. It's when you choose to live honestly, not performatively. It's when you no longer need check-ins, reminders, or applause. You get up, continue, and finish simply because you've chosen to live by your values. And one day you'll realize those quiet commitments you've honored are the foundation that holds you steady when storms come. If today you've broken a promise to yourself, don't run from it. Look at it directly. No excuses, no self-judgment. Say, I didn't keep my word, but today I will begin again. Start by keeping just one promise in the next 24 hours. It doesn't need to be perfect, only consistent. And if you slip again, don't reset, just correct and continue. Rebuilding trust in yourself doesn't require perfection. It only requires persistence. Because in the end, life doesn't measure you by the promises you speak, but by the promises you keep. Not by how many people you impress, but by how many times you lived true to your own choices. And when you live that way, consistently, honestly, solidly, you'll never need to wonder how to find self-confidence. You will already be someone who can be trusted by the one person who matters most, yourself. And there is no foundation more unshakable than that. True freedom doesn't mean doing whatever you want, whenever you want. True freedom is the ability to do what needs to be done at the exact moment it matters, regardless of how you feel, regardless of unfavorable conditions, regardless of what others say. And the path to that kind of deep freedom isn't indulgence, and it's not instant gratification. It's self-discipline. It's the courage to choose the hard thing when the easy thing is right in front of you. It's the willingness to turn down temporary rewards in order to invest in something more lasting and worthy. Every day you stand at invisible crossroads. Sit down and study or scroll through your phone for just a few minutes. Go for a walk to strengthen your health or stay in bed for 20 more. Put off small talk to finish a task or procrastinate until tomorrow. These choices seem small, but they are silently programming your brain, shaping your identity, and determining whether you live by emotion or by commitment. Because the real danger is not in choosing comfort once, but in choosing it repeatedly until you forget how strong you once were. Self-discipline is not punishment. It is a silent declaration, I am no longer a slave to immediate desire. Every time you choose what's right over what's easy, you send a signal to your brain, I am in control. You're rewriting your inner history, where once you gave in, now you stand firm. No need for applause, no spotlight, just one small act that proves you are moving closer to real freedom. Self-discipline is a form of investment. You turn down short-term pleasure for long-term results. You say no to quick rewards to earn achievements that no one can take away from you. It isn't easy. Emotions will resist. Your environment will tempt you. Your brain will whisper, just this once. But you must learn to answer no. I don't act for comfort. I act for freedom. And every time you do, you grow beyond who you were yesterday. You'll see this clearly in those who go farther. They're not always motivated. They're not always excited, but they are disciplined. They don't need the right mood to take action. They've trained themselves to do what's necessary, regardless of circumstances. And that's what makes them dependable, grounded, and admirable. Because anyone can perform well when inspired, but only the disciplined can endure when everything feels hard. There will be days you must choose between sleeping in or starting earlier than the rest, between saying something hard and risking disapproval or staying silent just to be liked, between eating what you crave or sticking to the healthier choice, even if it's not as satisfying. And in those moments, ask yourself, do I choose short-term feeling or long-term result? Every answer builds one of two futures, either the identity of discipline or the cycle of indulgence. The good news is you don't have to win every battle. You just need to choose right often enough to shift your trajectory, from someone who always delays to someone who acts, from someone who always starts then quits to someone who follows through, from someone driven by emotion to someone in control, free, not because you can do anything, but because you're wise enough not to do everything. Self-discipline doesn't kill joy, it protects you from regret. The joy of eating something you shouldn't lasts a few minutes, but the feeling of being in control of yourself lasts the entire day. Procrastination gives you comfort now, but completion gives you momentum for the long haul. And if you're smart, you'll learn to trade, I'm willing to give up what feels good now to gain what feels great later, because you deserve more than momentary ease. You don't need to force yourself to live like a machine. Self-discipline doesn't make you rigid. It is the art of mastering yourself. It's learning when to stop, learning how to choose the harder thing, just because it's worth it. And with every right choice, you unlock a deeper confidence, not the kind that shouts slogans, but the steady kind that comes from within. I keep my word to myself. I can trust me. True freedom is when you can feel your emotions without being ruled by them, when you can delay gratification without feeling like you're losing, when you can do what's right without needing applause, without needing praise, without needing pressure. And to reach that level, you need only one tool, personal discipline. And if you've failed before at staying disciplined, don't beat yourself up. Failure isn't a dead end. It's a reminder that it's time to begin again. You don't need to fix everything in a day. Just begin again. In one moment, one new decision, one right action, one clear refusal of short-term ease. Then do it again and again. That's how discipline grows, not through noise, but through steady, silent, unwavering repetition. Self-discipline is the key that unlocks the door you've always dreamed of entering, the place where you no longer live in regret, where you are no longer controlled by passing emotions, where you can look at yourself and say, I am trustworthy, I am worthy, I have the power to choose, and am choosing what's best for me. It's not an easy path, but it is the only path that leads you back to the strongest, freest version of yourself, and you have what it takes to begin today. Some days you feel like you've accomplished nothing. You feel tired, lazy, unmotivated, and disappointed in yourself. But if you pause long enough to look at reality instead of emotion, you might realize you didn't quit. You still completed that important task. You still worked out even when you didn't want to. You still kept your promise to yourself, even when no one reminded you. So why are you calling the day a failure? Just because you didn't feel good, why are you letting emotions judge the effort your mind deliberately chose? Emotions are unstable. They change with the weather, with hormones, with what you've eaten, what you've heard, or what you saw moments ago. But your actions, those are the proof you should use to measure the worth of your day. Because feelings only reflect a fleeting state, while actions reflect who you are becoming. Feelings may tell you you're worthless, but actions prove you're persistent. And if you have to choose what to trust, trust your actions. Here's a strange truth. Some of the days you feel the worst are often the days you grow the most, because you acted without inspiration. You kept moving even when your motivation was gone. You followed through on what you committed to, even when your heart wasn't in it. That's not a failed day. That's one of your strongest. You just didn't see it clearly because you were viewing everything through the lens of emotion without stopping to examine the truth. Think of a farmer. There are days when the sun is scorching, the soil is dry, and sweat pours like rain. They feel exhausted, maybe frustrated, but they still plant the seeds. No one applauds them, no one celebrates them, but months later, when the harvest comes, no one remembers how they felt that day. Only the results of their quiet actions remain. Your life is the same. The successful aren't the ones who are always happy. They're the ones who keep planting, regardless of mood. When you start judging your day by what you did instead of how you felt, your self-perception changes. You no longer shame yourself for feeling lazy. You begin to recognize the value of persistence. You start to respect the strength it takes to finish even without enthusiasm, and slowly you build a foundation of real confidence, not based on how you feel, but based on actual data. I did what needed to be done. Feelings are not the enemy, but they should not be the judge. Let them be heard, but don't let them make the final call. Because if you only act when the moment feels right, you'll never go far. The people who make a difference aren't those who wait for perfect moods. They are people of principle. Principles are like a compass. They keep you moving in the right direction, even when emotional fog clouds the path. You can apply this in a simple way. Every evening, instead of asking, was I happy today, ask, what meaningful things did I complete today? Write it down. Look at the list. Let the truth reshape your perspective. Maybe you didn't hit 100%, but you pushed through to 80%. Maybe you didn't feel strong, but you didn't give up. Those truths are what you should build your self-worth on, not the emotional highs and lows swirling in your mind. I'm not saying this to invalidate your emotions, but to help you understand. Emotions don't reflect the whole truth. A day may feel bad, yet still be productive if you kept moving forward. And the reverse is true, too. A day full of excitement but empty of action is just a sweet illusion that leaves nothing behind. When you build the habit of measuring yourself by action, you become less shaken. You start seeing what truly matters. You adjust your expectations, not expecting to feel amazing every day, but instead expecting consistency. And this new expectation frees you from the pressure of perfection. You don't need to feel great to do great work. You just need to do great work, and joy will follow, slowly but surely. Don't forget, some of the smallest actions are actually your biggest wins. Getting out of bed on time, putting your phone away to focus, walking away from a pointless argument, choosing healthy food when your mood is low. These small things are signs of growth, proof that you're choosing action based on values, not feelings. And if you've done that today, then today was a day worth honoring, no matter what your emotions say. In the end, life isn't built on the days you felt good, but on the days you acted even when you didn't. Achievement doesn't come from constant positivity, but from steady resilience. Your journey doesn't require you to always be strong, just to keep going. And if you stay committed to evaluating yourself by action, you'll realize you're far stronger than you think. So, when the day ends, don't ask your heart how it feels. Ask your hands what they built, your feet where they carried you, and your mind how many doubts it overcame. Because those are the clearest reflections of the person you are becoming. And if you're honest enough to really look, you'll see today wasn't as bad as you thought. Today was a step forward, and you are on the right path. No one stays motivated forever, and that's okay, because motivation was never the factor that determined how far you'd go. It's just the starting spark. What gets you to the finish line is your ability to keep going when inspiration disappears. It's your ability to get up after a long, draining day and do what needs to be done, not because you feel like it, but because you made a commitment. And that is the difference between someone who only dreams and someone who truly changes their life. Here's a truth you need to face. There will be days when you wake up and don't want to do anything. You won't want to write. You won't want to study. You won't want to train. You won't want to face your responsibilities. You'll look at your schedule and sigh. You'll feel like all the energy has left your body. But it's in those very moments when you act without inspiration that you proved you're no longer someone who follows emotions, but someone who lives by principle. Because emotions are temporary, but commitments are enduring. Motivation is a gift, but discipline is an asset. Successful people aren't different because they always feel excited. They're different because they don't wait for inspiration to act. They move even when tired, discouraged, or unsure of themselves. And it's that quiet consistency that creates breakthroughs. Not because they do a lot in one day, but because they don't quit over many months. Inspiration might come from a video, a book, or a conversation. But inspiration arrives quickly and leaves just as fast. If you build your entire action system around inspiration, you'll constantly start and constantly stop. You'll sprint the first few days, then stall as soon as the initial energy fades. But if you learn to continue without needing a boost, you'll create a steady rhythm strong enough to carry you forward, even when the excitement is gone. You might ask, how can I act if I don't feel any motivation? The answer is, you don't have to feel it. You just need to begin. Motivation doesn't always precede action. Often it follows. When you push past the first 10 minutes, when you write the first sentence, take the first step, complete the first task. Once you initiate action, your mind begins shifting from resistance to focus. And surprisingly, energy comes back, but you'll never know that unless you start first. Imagine a mountain climber. He doesn't always want to take the next step. Sometimes cold wind slaps his face, his muscles ache, and his mind begs to turn back, but he knows if he stops every time he loses motivation, he'll never reach the summit. What keeps him moving isn't comfort, it's vision, it's a promise to himself. It's the belief that every small step, even in pain, brings him closer to his goal. Your life works the same way. So don't wake up asking, do I feel inspired? Ask, what did I commit to? That one question will transform how you move. It shifts your focus from short-term feelings to long-term values. And then, even on rough days, you still do what needs to be done. Even with an empty mood, you won't delay. Even when no one sees your effort, you stay true, because you don't need anyone to push you. You've become your own source of drive. You don't need to feel strong to become strong. You just need to do the right thing repeatedly until it becomes instinct. And one day when others quit because they've lost motivation, you'll still be standing, not because you never get tired, but because you've trained your inner endurance. And that endurance, that's what builds real greatness. Action without motivation is the foundation of freedom. When you can work without needing to feel inspired, you're no longer a puppet pulled by your emotions. You own your time, you own your choices, you own your results. And then something strange happens. The more you act without motivation, the less often you lose it. Because you've stopped relying on it. You've risen above it. Instead of waiting to feel ready so you can begin, start so you can feel ready. Instead of waiting for inspiration to act, act so you can reignite inspiration. And instead of measuring your worth by how you felt this morning, measure it by what you did, even when you felt nothing at all. That's what defines who you are. If today is a day with no energy, no inspiration, no motivation, that's okay, because you still have one thing more powerful: choice. You can still act, still move forward, still do what's right. And that's what actually creates change, not whether you feel like it today, but whether you refuse to quit today. And that choice over time is what transforms you into someone unshakable. Mindset isn't something you just think your way into and hope it changes your life. Mindset is a hidden system built from what you repeatedly do every day. Every small habit, how you respond to rejection, how you choose your morning priorities, how you spend money, how you speak to yourself, is quietly reprogramming your brain. And that's what shapes your true identity. Not what you say you believe, but what you live out like a reflex. Everyone says they want to change their mindset. They read books, listen to podcasts, tape motivational quotes on their walls, but then they start each day by checking social media, react impulsively, delay important tasks, live in clutter, and speak limiting thoughts to themselves. And they wonder why their mindset doesn't change. The truth is, mindset doesn't shift through declarations. It shifts through repeated behavior. Habits are the most powerful tools for subconscious transformation. When you build an intentional behavior and repeat it, you're not just changing your outcomes, you're reshaping your cognitive structure. You start reacting differently to familiar situations. You process information differently. You view the world differently, because you've recoded a new pattern, not in your conscious mind, but in a deeper region of the brain that governs your automatic responses. Take this, for example. If you build the habit of writing down your top 3 priorities every morning, your brain will gradually prioritize action over distraction. If you train yourself to sit quietly for 10 minutes when irritated instead of lashing out, you're rewiring your emotional regulation circuits. If you exercise consistently, you're not just building a stronger body, you're shaping the self-picture that says, I'm someone who takes care of my health, and that identity change influences countless future decisions. Well, identity doesn't come from saying, I'm a disciplined person. It comes from actually living that way through a string of repeated behaviors practiced so often that they become a part of your nervous system. You want a more decisive mindset? Start by saying no with clarity when needed. You want a mindset of abundance? Begin by tracking how you spend every dollar. You want to be calm? Practice deep breathing whenever emotions rise. Every single one of these actions is a brick in the foundation of your new mindset. The key is not making massive, fast changes. It's choosing the right keystone habit to begin with. Because some habits, even small ones, trigger a chain reaction. When activated, they lead to a series of other positive behaviors. For example, if you commit to sleeping early and waking on time, you begin to have more energy. With more energy, you focus better. With better focus, you work better. With better work, you feel more confident. With confidence, you make stronger decisions. And suddenly, one small habit has built an entirely new thought system. One of the biggest mistakes is judging a habit by short-term results. You work out for a week. You don't see change and quit. You write down goals every morning for 10 days. Don't feel clarity and stop. But you forget you're not building immediate results. You're building long-term identity. Every repeated action is a vote for the person you want to become. And you don't need a landslide win in one day. You just need to keep voting until the outcome is irreversible. Take a hard look at your current habits. What identity are they reinforcing? Are they making you someone who procrastinates or someone who follows through? Someone who's easily triggered or someone who remains grounded? Someone who reacts emotionally or someone who responds with intention? Don't judge yourself by your dreams or words. Judge by your habits, because habits are the most honest mirror of how you're truly living. If you want to change your life, don't start by thinking differently. Start by living differently, bit by bit, consistently, so that your new mindset has a place to grow. Because if you think like someone successful but live like your old self, your mind will be pulled back to its old patterns with no resistance. But if you start acting like someone successful, even before you fully believe it, your brain will eventually catch up through the natural process of adaptation. That's how real transformation happens, not from inside out, but from outside in, through behavior. You don't need to know everything, believe everything, or fully understand to start shaping your mindset. You just need to pick one right habit and repeat it for several days. Don't aim for perfection. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't believe you need to change everything all at once. Just lay one brick, then another, and keep going until one day you realize your mindset has already shifted without force. The right mindset isn't something you realize and hold on to forever. It's something you live each day by doing the right things, sustaining the right habits, responding intentionally, and choosing aligned values. And if you're patient enough to keep doing that long enough, you won't need to try to think the right way anymore, because by then you will have become that person. Naturally, you can't live without habits. The question isn't whether you have them. The question is, are you choosing them or are they choosing you? Because anything you repeat daily, whether intentional or not, quietly becomes a part of who you are. From how you reach for your phone in the morning, how you procrastinate difficult tasks, to how you react when you're hurt, these are all habits shaping your life, often without your awareness. And the problem is, if you don't choose them, the worst ones usually choose you. Habits don't wait for your conscious permission to start working. If you repeat something long enough, your brain stores it as a template to save energy. It doesn't sort between right or wrong. It only records what's repeated. Then one day you'll find yourself reacting in ways you don't even understand, because you're no longer the one in control. Your habits are acting on your behalf. That's why choosing habits early and intentionally isn't just self-help advice. It's survival. If you don't pause and decide which behaviors you actually want to become part of your life, you'll get swept up in the easy, fast, comfortable, and cheap responses. And when those compound, you no longer become the person you want to be. You become the product of surrender, not of deliberate design. You might say, I'm just scrolling for a few minutes. But that few minutes, repeated for 365 days, doesn't just steal time. It trains your brain to respond to boredom with distraction. You teach yourself a loop. Every time you feel empty, you look for something to fill it. Every time you feel tense, you look for something to escape it. And slowly, you lose your ability to focus. You lose your capacity to face real emotion. You start living shallow. You disconnect from yourself. And it all started with one harmless habit for fun. On the other hand, when you intentionally choose small, purposeful habits, you start reshaping your identity. For example, if you build the habit of cleaning your desk at the end of each day, you're planting signals of order and closure into your brain. If you drink a glass of water each morning before checking your